Hey everybody, and welcome back to another Max Velocity weather forecast. And in today's forecast, we'll be breaking down another huge pattern change that will bring the threat for another severe weather outbreak tomorrow. This will bring the threat for huge hail, damaging winds, and tornadoes. I'll give you the latest breakdown and everything that you need to know in this forecast, but let's first begin with what's happening across the United States today. We'll first begin with the Central Plains. That is where a low pressure system that just brought huge hail to areas like Texas yesterday is currently located. In fact, we saw hail upwards of almost 5 inches in diameter near Waco, Texas yesterday. This is a photo that we had sent in of some really large hail, and this is what we saw yesterday across a scattered region in Central and North Texas. So crazy stuff happened yesterday, and we could see a threat for more of this tomorrow in areas like the Southern Plains. I'll discuss more on what that looks like in a moment. We're still watching some severe weather back through areas in the southeast this afternoon. We've already seen a couple of water spouts just off the coast of Florida, and more severe weather will continue throughout the afternoon and evening before this system pushes more off to the east. Our next system that is going to bring more severe weather tomorrow is actually located back up here near the Rocky Mountains. This will drop down to the south and east. A positively tilted trough, believe it or not, will actually bring the severe weather potential, with the main concern being large to very large hail. And this is all coming from a pattern change here in the United States that we're going to be witnessing over the next 24 hours. So let's kind of take you through that with the jet stream. Beginning with tonight, that is where a low pressure system will be located back over near Wyoming and the Rocky Mountains. And then our other low pressure system that just brought severe weather yesterday will start to shift off to the east. Once we go into late Friday, that is when this trough will become more centered over the Southern Plains. Again, this is a positively tilted trough. That doesn't necessarily mean that there will be no severe weather, but overall, usually with positively tilted troughs, the tornado risk is lower. So that's good news there, but we are still watching for some pretty significant hail and as well as damaging winds. The upper level winds will be strong enough to be able to produce these updrafts and keep them intense for a long period of time. So we have to watch that threat very closely. Once we go into Saturday into Sunday, the system will move off to the east, and you might notice there will be a huge low pressure system back over in the Midwest and as well as the Ohio Valley. This will bring showers and storms for a few days back over in the Mid-Atlantic and as well as really anywhere along the East Coast. And once we go into next week, some good news if you don't want any severe weather, because it looks like we're gonna have a nice break from severe weather next week. This would all be associated with a very strong ridge in the United States, which might keep our severe weather chances next week near zero in the United States. So some really good news there, but overall, again, nothing really forecasted next week. We really are most concerned about tomorrow and as well as this weekend. So what does this look like on the future radar? Let me take you through tonight. Again, there will be some showers and storms back down in the southeast. Some of these could produce some large hail and damaging winds, but overall the threat of severe weather is going to be lowering by the time you see this forecast. And once we head into tomorrow, that is when things become very interesting. We'll be watching two different areas in particular. One will be back over on the East Coast that should just be mostly rain with maybe a little bit of isolated severe weather during the afternoon. And then the other area will be back down here in the Southern Plains. This is what could bring the threat for some significant severe weather tomorrow. So once we go through the daytime, severe weather likely. I'll talk about more specific details on timing and the threats in a second. And then once we go through late Friday into Saturday, you'll notice that severe weather threat and all the showers and storms will move through the southeast. This is where severe weather might also occur on Saturday, but the threat for right now does remain very low along the Gulf Coast. By Sunday and Monday, showers and storms continue through the northeast, and by late Monday into Tuesday, we'll still be watching for some showers and storms in the northeast, but notice this across the Great Plains next week. Very, very dry for the most part. We might have an isolated chance for some storms, maybe 1 or 2 days, kind of like your typical summertime storms, but I'm not concerned about any sort of really significant severe weather events next week, which is great news. We'll have a break, but obviously we have to get through tomorrow because notice there is now an enhanced risk for severe weather back through DFW and North Texas, and all modes of severe weather will be possible. And it does not just include DFW and North Texas. Don't get too caught up in the orange shaded region. Look outside of that. There is a marginal risk of severe weather that does have at least a low end threat for some severe weather from southern Oklahoma back through Arkansas and maybe even through South Texas. That is where we could see some significant hail, damaging winds and maybe a couple tornadoes. There's also a very large marginal threat of severe weather on the East Coast tomorrow. I am not that concerned with this region, but there might be some isolated $quarter to $half sized hail and maybe a little bit of isolated damaging winds. So a closer look at that risk, you'll notice here 4-county DFW Metroplex is included, as well as Waco, Texas. You are in that enhanced risk of severe weather tomorrow. The main concern will be large to very large hail. This is not too far off from what we just saw yesterday in terms of the risk. We are really going to be more concerned, though, about areas around and just south of DFW. I think, in my personal opinion, the worst of the severe weather in terms of hail, damaging winds, and tornadoes will probably be in this region here. So that's just south of the Metroplex, or really kind of in DFW back through Waco. That is where I have the greatest concern for large to very large hail, damaging winds, and a tornado risk. But notice the hatched region for 2-inch plus diameter hail does extend all the way back through Austin, Texas. So you're going to want to make sure you have a safety plan in place tomorrow. Protect your vehicles, cover your plants, do all those sort of precautions, because we'll definitely see some significant hail tomorrow. The damaging wind potential isn't too concerning right now. I would not be surprised if we go enhanced, possibly on the eastern side here, just east of Interstate 35W. That is where we might see a bit more of an increased damaging wind potential once this area of storms turns into a linear line of storms. So keep that in mind. Obviously, that will be potentially changed in the next outlook, but overall, the damaging wind threat is kind of a secondary threat for right now. The tornado risk also, it's not huge. I know there's a 5% probability, but this is a low threat overall. I'm not concerned too much about the tornado risk, but we might see a couple of tornadoes here across North Texas and back even through areas in South Texas. And I'll show you the timing in just a moment on the severe weather, but I do want to mention that the low-level jet, which is what helps to rotate supercells at the lower levels, which essentially increases a tornado risk, we're not really going to be seeing much of a strong low-level jet tomorrow. Where it will be the strongest is going to be south of Interstate 20. That is just south of Dallas and Fort Worth. So the greatest tornado risk for right now is likely to stay just to the south of DFW. We do have a low-level jet around 35 to 40 knots, so that will be able to help rotate some supercells, but the threat near and just north of Interstate 20 is much lower. So overall, again, I'm more concerned about large hail, but there might be an isolated tornado or two. There will also be plenty of instability once we go into tomorrow. Daylight heating will really lead to a lot of instability, and the greatest concern right now is going to be just to the south of Dallas and Fort Worth. I've mentioned this several times, but that's really where I have the greatest concern. There's a chance of severe weather outside of that, but right now the ingredients are coming together much better in terms of areas just south of Dallas. And also the amount of moisture in the atmosphere, it's pretty dry today. Obviously, dew points down into like the low 50s in North Texas, but they're going to go right back up tomorrow. We'll have dew points back into the low to mid 60s. This will create some buoyancy to increase the threat of severe weather. So for the timing of severe weather, we'll stay dry during the morning, but bang, look at 3 o'clock. That is when showers and storms will start to fire up right along a cold front, and this is where supercell action is very likely to occur. Large hail is the main concern with these storms, but we might see some damaging winds and potentially a brief tornado. By 4 to 5 o'clock, storms will continue to really march to the east and northeast. We might have a chance of seeing an outflow boundary, which that's actually what the HRR model is showing here. So if that does end up happening, we'll have some more supercells develop near DFW. Initially, within like the first 20 to 30 minutes, that's when they'll produce hail, and then it'll turn into more maybe a damaging wind threat. By 7 to 8 o'clock, storms move off to the east. That main area of storms is way to the bottom of your screen. This would be all outflow driven storms, so that's a potential that we'll see tomorrow evening, but those are primarily going to be large hail. The tornado risk with that would be near zero, so I'm not concerned about that, but more of a large hail damaging wind threat with that. And for those in southeast Texas, some showers and storms will start to fire up near Waco, again around 2 to 3 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, and we'll see the main concern for large hail down this direction. Damaging winds will become more of a concern as that line of storms moves to the east. Tornado risk, I really think will be near zero, but there might be an isolated brief tornado in this line. That would primarily be near Interstate 35W when the storms initially develop over that direction. And one little thing I wanted to throw in at the end of this forecast, this is actually the simulated infrared imagery satellite for tomorrow. You'll notice here all the storms blowing up, and you'll notice, again, a lot of cloud cover here. That's going to be all from the showers and storms that'll blow up tomorrow. So kind of a cool little feature here that is on the computer model, so I just want to kind of throw that out there. Thanks for watching. Make sure to hit the like button down below and subscribe if you've not already. This forecast is brought to you by Platinum Contracting.